Welcome to Leading by Example, Sparking Innovation Through Human-Centered Leadership, a think tank media podcast. Hosted by Andrew Whitson, leadership strategist, educator, and founder of Person First Consulting, this show explores how trust, empathy, and inclusive leadership shape stronger teams, smarter innovation, and healthier workplace cultures. Because when you lead people first, results will follow. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Leading by Example, Sparking Innovation Through Human-Centered Leadership. I am your host, Andrew Whitson, the CEO and founder of Person First Consulting. And before we jump into our special guest today, I just wanted to do a quick recap. So in our first podcast, we covered the topic of human-centered leadership, focused on the different areas within human-centered leadership, including empathy, emotional intelligence, authenticity, trust, well-being, and psychological safety, in an effort to foster innovation in organizations through different methods like inclusion, sharing of ideas, being vulnerable, and the goal to increase not only innovation, but also performance for organizations. So without further ado, I'd love to go ahead and introduce our special guest today. I'm a colleague and close friend of mine, Dr. Parish Jefferson.
Hello, Andrew.
Hey, Parish. Always good to see you.
It is.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and what drives your work, focused around human-centered leadership and fostering innovation.
Yes. Well, first, thanks for having me, Andrew. I appreciate it. And it is good to see you as well. So I spent over 2 decades at Microsoft and Hewlett-Packard watching organizations say that they valued people, but watching them make decisions that kind of suggested otherwise. And I became genuinely interested and curious about that gap, kind of why it exists, what it costs, and what it looks like when leaders actually close that gap. And that curiosity really became the focus of my doctoral research. It became the focus of the courses I teach at UC San Diego, and it became the focus of my book coming out, Empathy Rising. I currently work as a center manager at UC San Diego Sanford Stem Cell Institute, which puts me kind of in a fascinating intersection of science and leadership, right? Because I'm really looking at the human dynamics of building teams and at the same time developing that next generation of researchers. So that through line of what I'm doing in the previous work and current work really brings me back always to my same question, and that is, what does it actually take to lead people well? And that's really what I'm focused on in everything I do.
It's a great question and a great framing for a leader's mentality. I would say is just like because I feel like we often forget about some of those things, and so I think looking forward to today's conversation. So let's dive on in.
All right.
And so you talked a little bit about your new book, Empathy Rising. When is it coming out?
It will be coming out, honestly, any day now. I'm at the very final stage. I just spoke with my publisher a couple of days ago, and they actually told me probably by the end of the week. So I think you will see it on Amazon probably by the end of the weekend. I'm going to say you'll see it out.
Awesome. Anything you can share with us about what to expect? The book?
Yeah. The book, to me, it's my proudest work thus far, I'll say. But it really, I've been, again, when I go back to that question of, right, what does it take to lead people well? I started really looking at what the conditions that what I consider excellent or great managers create for those employees. And I kept coming back to this thing, empathy. And the managers that I have most respected, and from the feedback I've got of a lot of employees who I've talked with, have been the leaders that really have been empathetic, have showed them that they care about them, right? Not just as an employee, but as a person. And that, to me, was the driving focus for the book. So what you'll get in this book, I've laid it out as 10 steps. I say to bridge divides and rebuild connection. And the goal is that you can have these lessons and these skills in the book that are going to teach you how to be a better leader, how to be a better person, and really just overall, hopefully, make it a better society. So the book serves many purposes. I think that hopefully will help people just get over some of the frustrating things we're experiencing in today's society and in our world and our organizations.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there. And, thinking back on my own leaders, and I have the pleasure of being on a call with one of my previous
Yeah.
leaders, Parish used to be my boss. So I can speak that he was definitely an empathetic leader.
Thank you.
And on the flip side too, when I've led employees, I find that, when you lead with empathy, it fosters that, like what you're talking about, a better relationship where you get to know more than just their work life.
Yes.
We're not just worker bees, we've
Mhm.
got lives and identities that we bring to the table.
Yep.
And when you can leverage that and use that kind of gets into some of the fostering innovation that we're talking about within this podcast. But so just all around great things.
I want to add to that something you just
Yep.
said there, because I think a lot of times empathy gets not as strong of a label as it should. Empathy to me is not just a feeling, but what you said, it's really a practice of having genuine curiosity about someone else's experience. So it's much deeper than just that feeling, but that curiosity, we'll probably touch on that a little bit more as we get into our conversation, but I think that's an important piece to point out early on.
Yeah, it's like you were reading the first question I have here.
All right.
So we covered this a little bit, but I'm going to take a part of this question. So we hear a lot, to be more empathetic or have empathy for your fellow man, right, or woman. How do you get beyond that into a leadership competency, or how does it kind of be something that you practice instead of something that you are?
Yeah, you're right. We did just touch on a little bit, but we'll definitely dive into it deeper. It starts to me, like I say, that genuine curiosity, right? To want to know about that person, who they are. And I believe, through my experience and my research and through, conversations I've had with leaders, that curiosity, when you show that curiosity with those employees, that does create, what we talk about, psychological safety, right? It's the first part of building that relationship where the employees believes or sees that you want to know them more than just the employee they are, right? So that starts creating that environment. And really, it's the foundation for creating that culture. So when you use empathy in a leadership position, you will create a culture of safety for your employees. You create an environment where not just you get to know the employees, but they get to know each other, right? In that deeper situation. So you start building that strong team, a team that's going to be resilient, a team that's going to come together, a team that's going to learn how to solve problems. So I believe that empathy is just the foundation. It's what's going to help you build that team that's going to be successful, that team that's going to succeed, and like I said, be resilient, and hopefully stay together for quite a long time. So that's where I think it is. I see empathy as the foundation for leadership.
Yeah, great points there, and something that popped into my brain as you were speaking about it. Thinking about empathy across the whole journey, right? And so from the first interview all the way until if you have to part ways, right?
Yes.
Empathy, and there's an example, I won't name names, but a company that let 30,000 employees go recently.
Yes.
Via an email at 6 a.m. Right? That would be an example of what I would argue is not leading with empathy, right?
Exactly.
So just, like you said, if you can keep that culture from day one and then build it into your practices, then you'll have people that want to stay and hope to stay for things.
And I'm glad you used that example of the recent layoff that was just in the news, because it's I think when organizations do that, they do, I don't want to say they forget, but maybe they just don't remember that we're human, right? And we all deserve some level of respect, and how that's going to ultimately affect people, right? So having, at 30,000 people is a big number. It may be difficult to have one-on-one conversations with everyone, but you could have done it in a more empathetic way, right? So I think that's important. And as you know, you and I know, we both have been through layoffs in organizations, and I think there's just a right way to handle it and a wrong way. So.
Yeah. Great. So something that you and I have talked about before, in our work with teaching courses, you're thinking about first-time managers, and oftentimes they'll be promoted without any training, right? So if you can think about one or two things that you wish every new manager understood before they ever have that first direct report.
Yeah. Um, you know, I think to me, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say we are promoted to a manager position, but we got to look at it that it's not really a promotion in the sense that we're not being promoted from within our current job. It's fundamentally a different job, right? That we're moving into. It's a new job. So we have to think that the skills that we use maybe to be that excellent or that top individual contributor, focus, precision, maybe delivering results or top sales, those things may not be the same skills that are going to be required when you're a manager. They're different skill set. So I think the first thing and the most important thing that is that we recognize that and we're willing to learn what it's going to require to be a leader, to be an effective leader, and learn to open up to your team. And this goes back to kind of what we talked about before. People first or person-centered leadership, where you got to approach it as, I may not be the smartest person in the room. There may be people on my team that know more than I do, and be willing to create those conditions to where they're going to be successful and they're going to be willing to open up and talk to you about it. I think too often new managers that have just been promoted particularly think, okay, I was the top person in the sales team. Now I know everything and I'm going to drive them to do it exactly as I did it. And that's just not the way it works. So you need to take that step back and really learn to utilize the skill set within your team.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think back on some of the leaders that I've had, and the ones that I think are most successful are the ones that recognize that they may not be the smartest person in the room. And even if they are, there's still value in the intellect of a group as opposed to the intellect of one. It sounds so obvious, right? But
yes, it does. It does. It's funny. I teach that in one of my courses. We talk a lot about groupthink, right? Which comes out of that kind of situation when the manager believes he's the smartest person. He knows more than everybody else, and he's kind of forcing his ideas on everybody, and everybody just goes along with it, right? But that's not the environment you want to create for success, and particularly long-term success. And as you said, even if you are the smartest, other people are going to have different perspectives, they're going to have different ideas, and they're just going to have a different way of looking at things. So it's always good to tap into that and make sure you're giving everyone in your team a voice.
Great. So we talked a little bit about that new manager, right? But how does this conversation surrounding empathy switch for, someone who's maybe been in their position for 25 years, right? And they're so used to their way of leading, that introducing something like this might be met with some resistance. How do you combat that?
Yeah, for me, I think I touched on this a little bit, but the reason or kind of why I started writing this book was just everything that I felt was going on in our society today, right? And I felt that empathy is a big missing piece. So when I think of more senior leaders or established leaders, I believe that it's important for them to always be growing, right? Always try to make sure that they are doing what's best for their team to be successful. And that involves putting them right in the best position to be successful. So I don't think it matters whether you're a first-time manager, a middle manager, or you're a senior leader. Empathy to me is what's going to make you successful. And it's what's going to make your team successful. I was recently part of the transition at Microsoft when we went from one CEO to the new CEO, Satya Nadella. And when he took over, I think that was one of the first things he did was he took a real empathetic approach, and he had a curious nature about him where he wanted to understand what employees were thinking, what we were experiencing, what we were going through. And he established a culture on that, a culture that worked for, tens of thousands of people across a huge organization. So I think it's important no matter what level of leadership you're in.
100% agree with you there. Kind of thinking along the same lines. So I know we both have experienced and seen, a lot of companies will give the lip service of being innovative or welcoming diverse thoughts. But, getting it from the page to practice, right? Of how do we go from it being a line on a website or, something in a strategy document? How do you get it from that phase into actionable visual cues that a business is operating under that fostering innovation?
I think it's interesting because that's kind of where my dissertation research focused on. I looked at kind of DI professionals in global technology firms, how those organizations that claim they value inclusion. How do they actually can you say the word operationalize it? And also where those gaps are, right? And when I looked at that, I think what we found is that the organizations that were successful, they really embedded true DEI and inclusion, we'll just say inclusion and diversity within their organization. It wasn't an add-on, it wasn't, a checkbox. It was something that was really part of their culture, right? So it goes back to, again, making people feel psychologically safe, right? Allowing people to have a voice, making sure everyone is part of decision making. All these different things were in place. And that's what created these environments where I think it wasn't just something that was talked about, what was part of the organization. And the funny thing is, too, is the organizations I found that were most successful at it weren't the ones that were posting it all over their sites, announcing it, waving flags. They were the ones that just really had it embedded. It was just part of who they were, their culture, right? It didn't need to be said because everyone understood this is what we stood for. So that's the interesting thing I thought about it. So sometimes you got to go beyond looking at how do we reach, XYZ number, or how do we reach this particular number of minority candidates or whatever it may be, and look at what type of culture, what type of environment are we trying to establish, and how can we go about creating that? And I think that's what makes usually an organization have better success within inclusion.
Yeah, I'm right along there with you. And I feel like something I've seen too is like in the interview process, right? Of just it's something you just feel.
Yeah.
You can tell that it's not just well, go talk to HR about that.
Yeah.
It's something that's embedded within their culture from
Yes.
an interview stage, and
Yeah.
and you just feel it once
You do.
on the
You can feel it. Yeah, right. By the questions they ask, the people you interact with, how they treat you, just you can feel that it's different at that organization. And I think that's the important thing. And when you I think when you feel that or experience that, like you said, it. And it's a great feeling. You tell right off the get-go. So it's good.
Yeah. So last question for you here. You talked a little bit about the work that you're doing at UC San Diego, but tell us a little bit more about that research training program and how human-centered leadership looks like when it's applied to workforce development.
Yeah, we are actively working on a couple new things at the Sanford Simpson Institute. One, we're establishing our own kind of education programs, which I'll kind of tie into this bigger thing. But the big thing is this new grant that we're working on for Compass, part of CERMS. It's a Center for Integrative and Regenerative Medicine, or California Institute for Regenerative Medicine. That's what it stands for. I always get it confused. But that particular institute, we are working to establish some programs that are going to allow students coming to UC San Diego or current undergrad UC San Diego students to be involved, hopefully in becoming kind of the next generation of our scientists. So we're going to really be focused on kids that are coming from underserved communities, underrepresented groups, what it may be. And we're going to try to get them into the field of science. We're going to be offering monthly stipends for them, so they actually get paid for doing this, which is good. Their tuition will be picked up for a couple of years. They're going to get internships in our labs to learn about science firsthand. They get appointed a mentor from our faculty that will work with them during their time. So it's really this entire wraparound service that we're going to provide that, like I say, are going to hopefully take kids that don't get these opportunities generally and give them this new opportunity to become maybe a scientist, a doctor, some type of a researcher, an academic professor, whatever it may be in the future. So I'm really excited about that. And I think it's that whole thing of, I'm going to be one of the ones, kind of one of the key personnel. So I'll be doing a lot of the trainings, teaching them about leadership, teaching them how to be, like you say, stay curious and be a great leader and be empathetic and really learn how it is to work with, as a future leader, I guess is how I'll put it.
Awesome. Well, Parish, thank you so much for being a guest on our show here today. And
Thank you,
it's always a pleasure to hear about what you're working on, and I'm excited to see your book coming out here very soon.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. Great talking with you as well.
Awesome. And then diving into what is coming up next, I'm going to cover some practical skills and behaviors, as well as challenges to human-centered leadership and how to approach them. So, some of what we were talking about with leaders that might be resistant to change. That's definitely going to be our focus next and what to do. So stay tuned. And so I know Parish's email and LinkedIn we're down on the bottom there below, and mine is here as well. If you have questions about building innovative teams and fostering human-centered leadership, feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat and go from there.
Thank you for spending time with us on Leading by Example, Sparking Innovation Through Human-Centered Leadership. You can watch every episode of the podcast inside Hospitality Nexus, a global human-first platform bringing the hospitality ecosystem together in one place. Inside the Nexus, it's a career fair that never closes, connecting industry leaders, educators, students, employers, and partners through real presence. Explore more at hospitalitynexus.org. Until next time, lead people first, results follow.